Russia will attack Poland as early as 2027. The armed forces of Ukraine have liberated Kindrativka in the Sumy region and repelled an offensive in the Siverskyi direction. The meeting is really going to happen. When and where will Zelensky and Putin meet? Children are assembling Russian attack drones in factories. A German politician from a pro-Russian party secretly fought for Ukraine. Now they want to expel him from the party. Greetings, my name is Katerina Pachalchuk, and right now, here are the top stories. But first, like this video if you support Ukraine, and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose each other on YouTube. It will happen sooner than planned. Forget about 5 years. We only have 2. Russia will attack Poland as early as 2027. This shocking statement was made by Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
Today, the Supreme Allied Commander Europe of NATO and the Commander of US forces in Europe, General Alexis Grinkovich, is, in a sense, our compatriot. His ancestors come from former Polish territories, as confirmed by American experts. Recently, he stated in Europe that Russia will be ready for confrontation with Europe and therefore with us as early as 2027. Today, we adopted the national security strategy at a government meeting. I also had the opportunity today to speak with the former head of MI6 and the new head of MI6. In all of these meetings, conversations, and decisions, they are dedicated to one thing. Poland must be ready, Poland must be well prepared, the Polish army must be well equipped, and the situation in Poland must be stable so that we are prepared for any scenario.
Well, judging by such forecasts, it's no wonder that Poland, out of all European countries, is probably rearming and preparing for a Russian offensive the most actively. In Warsaw, as in Finland and the Baltic countries, they understand that nothing separates them from Russia except a single border. And what do you think of these forecasts? Do you believe them? Or do you think the offensive will happen sooner? We have long awaited and good news for you. The armed forces of Ukraine have managed to liberate Kindrativka in the Sumy region. According to Deep State, the 225th Separate Assault Regiment is behind a significant success in the Sumy direction.
According to information from our sources, the 225th Separate Assault Regiment has completed the clearing and securing of Kindrativka. This is already the second village that the unit has liberated in the Sumy region. During the liberation of both villages, the enemy suffered heavy losses, specifically the battalion of the 40th Separate Guards Marine Brigade, the battalion of the 155th Separate Guards Marine Brigade, and the Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 30th of September 8th Motorized Rifle Regiment. By the way, the commander of the last unit was also eliminated. For a long time, enemy infantry remained surrounded in the village. Accordingly, it took some time to flush them out.
The General Staff has not yet commented on the situation in Kindrativka. Meanwhile, in the Siverskyi direction, the Phoenix drone unit of the State Border Guard Service repelled an assault near Bilohorivka. Our troops managed to stop the Russians' combined assault and completely destroy enemy infantry, 2 tanks, an armored vehicle, and a passenger car belonging to the enemy. On other sections of the front, our troops are holding the line. The Pokrovsk direction remains the hottest spot. Russia keeps up the pressure and is also spreading fake news. For the second time this week, the Russians claim they've entered Pokrovsk and are publishing videos.
How many of you are there?
Just one.
Why are you here?
We are Russians. Yes, we are Russians.
Did you check over there? Is everything clear?
Everything is clear.
In reality, there are no Russians in the city, and the fighting is taking place on the outskirts of Pokrovsk. However, no one is denying the obvious: the situation in this direction is difficult. This is in fact what the Institute for the Study of War is also saying.
Russian forces have likely captured Novoekonomichne to the northeast of Pokrovsk and appear to be conducting limited sabotage and reconnaissance missions in Pokrovsk amid Russia's ongoing efforts to encircle the city.
The military also speaks of the pressure and advancing occupiers.
The enemy is trying to break through north of Udachne, using small infantry groups. Our fighters are holding the defense securely. In recent days, the enemy's losses have been significant, but they continue to apply pressure nonetheless. In the area of Kotlin, they tried to attack to the southwest and gain a foothold, but our fighters did not allow them to stabilize. Also, most of the settlement of Zvirov is under enemy control. In addition, they are trying to expand their zone of control to the southwest in order to establish full control over the village and move closer to Pokrovsk. The situation is relatively difficult and tense. The enemy is making tactical attempts to approach the city from the west and south, especially through Kotlin and Udakne. Right now, the enemy is actively operating along the road to the city and trying to bypass our lines, but so far without any systematic success.
However, the situation in the Pokrovsk direction could become even more intense. According to Petro Andriushchenko, head of the Center for the Study of Occupation, Russia is preparing to intensify its offensive on Pokrovsk and Zaporizhia and is already transferring equipment there. Military personnel also report that Russia is increasing its activity in the Zaporizhia direction, but our guys are taking out the occupiers. The occupiers are also trying to push into the Dnipropetrovsk region. The previously mentioned soldier with the call sign Alex writes that these are assaults in the area of Novomykolaiivka and Novosergivka.
Mainly with the use of vehicles, but so far they are being actively by our FPVs and...
As you can see, they are unable to achieve any significant success. In Novomykolaiivka, the line of contact has been relatively stable for some time, but the enemy is trying to bypass the Solona River through Novosergivka.
Thank you to our defenders, both men and women, and I take this opportunity to ask you to donate to the army and support our defense forces. They are doing the incredible. There will be a meeting, but when and where is unknown. The Turkish foreign minister stated that during recent negotiations, the Ukrainian and Russian delegations, and I quote, reached a fundamental agreement on holding a meeting between President Zelensky and Putin.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
The good news is that, in principle, an agreement has been reached to hold a summit at the leaders' level in Turkey under the patronage of our President Erdogan, with the participation of Mr. Putin, Mr. Zelensky, and Mr. Trump. However, the leaders differ in their views on the conditions. They have different demands regarding the ceasefire regime in order to participate in the summit. And this is precisely where the task of the negotiating delegations is to coordinate these technical details.
On the eve, there was also a statement from the president of Turkey saying that he wants to organize this very meeting and is allegedly already preparing to negotiate the date and time.
In the near future, possibly even within this week, we will make efforts to speak again by phone with Mr. Putin as well as with Mr. Trump, to find out whether we can organize a meeting between Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelensky in Istanbul, Erdogan said on Friday, the 25th of July, as quoted by the Directorate of Communications of the Republic of Turkey.
Ukraine has also spoken about the meeting. Istanbul was proposed as the venue. US President Donald Trump is also talking about this.
It will definitely happen. Although such a meeting was supposed to take place 3 months ago.
But you know what? The Kremlin, as always, has its conditions.
A high-level meeting can and should put a final end to the settlement and formalize those modalities and agreements that are to be developed during the expert work. Doing the opposite is impossible. Is it possible to go through such a complex process in 30 days? Well, obviously, it's unlikely. Then here, our positions are very well known. Our position is set out in the draft memorandum that was handed over to the Ukrainian side. Currently, the approaches in the draft memorandums exchanged during the second round are diametrically opposed. It's unlikely they can be reconciled at once. This would require very complex diplomatic work.
I couldn't even count how many such conditions and ultimatums there have been. That's why even analysts from the Institute for the Study of War write that the Kremlin is deliberately dragging out the negotiations between Zelensky and Putin.
The Institute for the Study of War continues to assess that Russia is feigning interest in negotiations in order to buy time to achieve success on the battlefield and to gain concessions from Ukraine and the West, which stands in stark contrast to Ukraine's consistent willingness to participate in negotiations to end the war.
What do you think? How much longer will the Kremlin keep playing this to be or not to be game? He fought for Ukraine and is now risking his political career. It's hard to believe, but 22-year-old Tim Schramm, a member of the pro-Russian party Alternative for Germany, secretly fought as a volunteer on Ukraine's side.
In an interview with news journalists, the politician himself said that he first visited Ukraine in 2022, when he was delivering humanitarian aid to the combat zone. After that, at the age of 19, he says he tried to join the International Legion of the Ukrainian Army, but at that time he was not accepted. At the end of 2024, Schramm tried once again to join the Ukrainian military. As he himself said, this time it was through connections. Thanks to them, he claims he joined the Territorial Defense Forces of Ukraine and began serving in a unit from eastern Ukraine.
We thank Tim for standing up to defend our country. But the young politician's courage was not appreciated by the party, and now there is a very high likelihood that Tim Schramm's political career is over, at least within the Alternative for Germany party.
By serving in the ranks of the Ukrainian army and publicly commenting on his participation in combat, the respondent has seriously violated the party's principles and order, causing it significant harm.
According to the German publication Welt, the decision to revoke his membership rights has allegedly already been made by a majority vote of the regional branch leadership. However, there is no official information yet. Well, in any case, Tim is always welcome in Ukraine, and if he still wants to connect his life with politics, I think there are conscious parties in Germany that he could join. Write a few kind words to Tim in the comments. I know that people watch us from all over the world. Write in the comments which country you're from and whether you support Ukraine in its fight against Russia. It's always nice to read such comments. We've mentioned more than once that Russia has significantly increased its drone production. This is confirmed by both our own and foreign intelligence and media. We also know where most of the drones are produced, the Alabuga plant in Tatarstan. And do you know how Russia managed to multiply its UAV production volumes? Child labor.
Children, a sacred cause.
And the plant itself doesn't really try to hide it. In a triumphant film about drone production published a week ago, they showed teenagers assembling German drones. In Russia, of course, this is presented as part of practical training at the Alabuga Polytechnic College. But no matter what you call it, the drones are being assembled by 15-year-old children. CNN also drew attention to the living and working conditions of these 15-year-old specialists.
The host mentions the boys and girls working at the factory, noting that they invite school children here right after 9th grade, and after college they call them to the factory. Children in Russia are usually 15 years old when they finish the 9th grade. There is now evidence that Alabuga is involving these and possibly other students not only in assembly work but also in construction. On the 4th of July, a summer camp called Alabuga Build was officially opened at this location. CNN counted more than 100 khaki green tents, similar to those seen in Alabuga Build posts on VK next to warehouses associated with drone production. The camp is organized by Russian student brigades, who claim to be the largest youth organization in the country, and have recruited about 2,500 students to build a residential complex called Mediterranean Park in Alabuga.
Judging by how military propaganda operates in schools and even kindergartens, it seems to me that there will be even more teenagers working at such factories. Or, so to speak, when the new generation grows up, most of them will end up working at defense industry enterprises. But since there aren't enough Russian youths for now, Russia is recruiting women from African countries to work at places like Alabuga. Granted, it's not exactly honest, but it's not like I'm very surprised. The Soviet-style youth movement has taken on new colors in Putin's Russia. In Russia, from the young to the old is involved in the war and the killing of Ukrainians. So, what do you think about that? You're not our enemies, but you are making threats. And besides, Ukraine is just a buffer zone. The Prime Minister of Hungary and one of Putin's European allies, Viktor Orbán, has once again brought up Ukraine's EU membership. It's not hard to guess that he's against it. Nothing has changed here. But to our surprise, Orbán offered an alternative. He says, we propose strategic cooperation to you.
We have an offer for Ukrainians because we don't consider them our enemies. Maybe that's how they see us, but we don't see them that way. We believe that there should be an orderly cooperation between Ukraine and the EU, a sensible cooperation that does not pose the same risk of war for the Union. That's why membership is out of the question. It's irreversible. If you accept it, you also take on your fate. And Ukraine's fate now is to be a buffer state next to Russia. We do not want this fate. You can't change your country's house number, especially at your neighbor's expense. So we propose not membership, but strategic cooperation on a contractual basis, which can be maintained, terminated, or adjusted depending on the situation. We would agree to this, but right now it's not about that. It's about imposing membership. And they are undoubtedly making threats. So Ukraine is making very serious threats against Hungary.
Yeah, as soon as you stop coming into Zakarpattia with Hungarian passports, then we'll talk. And what do you think about such proposals from Orbán? The fact that Trump is slowly but surely opening his eyes to Putin's Russia and, if I may cautiously suggest, is leaning toward Ukraine in his neutral stance has been noticed by everyone. And for that, I thank Donald. Now he hints that he might not even wait 50 days to impose sanctions against Russia. We are considering this situation. Perhaps we will impose initial sanctions earlier than 50 days. But while his approval rating is rising among Ukrainians, in the US, Trump is losing ground. A study by the American sociological company Gallup states that support for Trump among US residents is only 37%. This is a historic anti-record.
In the second quarter of Trump's second term, which lasted from April 20th to July 19th, the average approval rating of his work was 40%, which is comparable to the average figure of 39% in the second quarter of his first term. This is significantly lower than the average of 59% in the second quarter for all presidents after World War II, elected from 1952 to 2020.
How Trump reacted to the news of his low approval rating, we don't know, but it seems to us that he might have been upset, because support and praise are, after all, important to him. One piece of evidence for this is, for example, the fact that the US lifted sanctions against allies of the junta in Myanmar. What does this have to do with anything? According to The Independent, this happened after the head of the regime in Myanmar, General Min Aung Hlaing, praised Trump.
Washington's decision was made after the leader of the junta, General Min Aung Hlaing, sent a letter dated the 11th of July to Trump, in which he requested a reduction of the 40% tariff imposed on Myanmar and expressed his willingness to negotiate a trade agreement. He also praised the president for his strong leadership in guiding his country toward national prosperity with the spirit of a true patriot.
And that's believable, considering how much Trump believed and perhaps still believes that he is respected by Putin. I don't know if the writers of the series South Park relied on approval ratings, but in the new season they portrayed President Trump, to put it mildly. In short, in the new episode of the animated series, Trump offers sex to Satan. And the president is also suing those who criticized him. The White House has already criticized this kind of television art.
President Trump has fulfilled more promises in 6 months than any other president in the history of our country. And no fourth-rate television show can ruin his successful work.
The creator of the series in turn jokingly apologized. But whether the publisher in Scotland will apologize even as a joke remains an open question. On the 25th of July, President Trump began his visit to Scotland. The local Z National decided to welcome the American guest in a very creative way and announced Trump's visit with the headline, "Convicted criminal from the USA to arrive in Scotland" on the front page. The issue went viral online. What do you think about that? Leave your comments. Give this video a like to support what we do, and be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss our next episodes. See you soon!